And so I just want to address this to Dr. Vincent, just drawing from Pat's presentation, which was quite powerful. Dr. Vincent, how can a parent draw a line between learned behavior deserving management and guidance vis-a-vis these innate behaviors resulting from uncontrolled variables? Hence calling for unlearning programs and management. This was a question that was emailed from a gentleman called Charles Nguli. And I think his concern is values for children with special needs, children who may have innate personalities. How does he go about it? How do we go about it?
Very good. Very, very good question, actually. And something that I'm sure many parents and teachers are grappling with. There are certain things that pertain to the domain of what I call style. And you have different styles. You have some people who are introverts, some who are extroverts, some who are very serious, some who are very laid back and jovial. And those are not things that anyone should be trying to control. Those are things that you're born with. And depending on how you were born, you definitely have a preference for whatever is comfortable for you. So meaning the kind of person that you're going to become, are you going to be a good person, an honest person, a generous person, a hardworking person? And these are things that can be taught and can be learned. But then, are you comfortable around many people or just around a few people? That's something you're born with. And that's not something that you should try and change in your students or in your children, in your case. So when you're looking at temperament, and I would really advise people here to read up on temperament, to understand how we are born with certain inclinations, and that's fine. They come with strengths and weaknesses too. And that's just something that you should learn, that if I'm an introvert, I'll find it hard to speak in public. Does it mean it's impossible for me? No. I know some excellent public speakers who are introverts. All it means is that whenever they do that performance, because for them it's not something that comes naturally, it's a performance, they're going to get exhausted. And so they need to learn what to do to get their energy back. And so if you know that you have a particular son or daughter who's an introvert, and you've actually forced them because the situation demanded it to act a bit like an extrovert, like it's so-and-so's party, let's all sing happy birthday, or go and play with so-and-so, because it's the right thing to do. But you know they're going to be exhausted, so you have to give them a break. You have to give them some me time later on to recoup their energies. Whereas the other person who's extroverted, sometimes you have to ask them to keep quiet and give other people a chance. And it's not that you're changing them from being extroverted. You're simply telling them in this moment, you have to act introverted. And you know that they're going to be able to do it because you've trained them, but you also know they will get exhausted, they lose energy. So later on, you have to allow them to go and do something rowdy and jump up and down and scream their head off somewhere to get their energy back. So those are things you're not really trying to control. You're trying to tell them, you're weak in this, so in this moment, I need you to be strong in it. But give them the latitude to get their energy back. But when it comes to something like honesty, no compromise. There, you're teaching them, you're pushing them in a certain direction. You're not giving them a break from it because this is values that we're talking about. So very important to distinguish between nature, what you're born with, which comes with its strengths and weaknesses, doesn't make it impossible for you to do things, but makes it difficult, and nurture, things that you learn. And as you learn, you just get better and better and better. And then also respect their individual personalities. Again, this is that domain of style that I was talking about. So temperament is what you're born with. Personality is the end product, where you have taken your hard work at working with those values and you've mixed it with a certain type of temperament, and you get the final thing that we see, the personality. And that is something you should allow your children to emerge and develop their particular style. And that's something that, in fact, even in terms of values, there are so many values. You don't like say, take all of them. No, anchor yourself on a few that are kind of complementary to your personality, to your temperament. And eventually you get a particular flavor or style, and that's you. That's the unique personality that we call you. So as parents and as teachers, we should be observing a lot more than prescribing. Just observe that child and say, what kind of personality are they developing? Let me help them along. So that if they're an introvert, but they'll be a very smart, hardworking, good introvert. If it's extrovert, the same thing, good values, but being themselves, and bringing out the differences in the family and that sort of variety that we all admire. So you need to observe more. Once you've figured out where you think they're heading with their personality, then you help them at that job, help them become the best possible version of themselves.
Wonderful. I think the only response to that is let the church say amen. I feel educated. I've taken notes. I intend to go and do application starting today. That's really informative. That temperament is what you're born with. Personality is the end product. And it doesn't matter what condition you have. Is it ADHD, autism? It's what you're born with. But there is what you could come out with, personality, and that is possible for everybody. I love that. And if it's the only thing we leave this place with, I think it has been enough. Now, I want to go into storytelling, and I want to start with a story of my own. Really. I am a Kenyan, so I feel like I've watched us as a people change. And the longer I live, the longer I think that people really do become what they're told they are. And so the stories that we've allowed ourselves to be told as Kenyans have shaped who we are, and they're shaping who our children are becoming. And I, as Jane, do not allow my son to watch news. I'm very afraid that he will hate himself and he will hate his country because of the stories that are told. So our next panelist, who is Mr. Clifford Oluoch, will discuss storytelling and the power of storytelling in character building and in shaping values. What are the stories we tell our children? What are the stories we tell ourselves? What are the stories that leaders tell the people that are working for them? What stories do head teachers tell teachers? Do teachers tell students? How have all these stories shaped who we are? Mr. Clifford, please lead us through that session.
Thank you very much. Before I put up the slides, of course, I will tell you the story because that's what we are moving into. Tomorrow, Muslims celebrate Eid. And to me, it is actually a special, should I say, occasion, because I've got a very interesting relationship with my Muslim students. They've taught me a lot, and I've learned a lot from them, and I've also taught them a lot. After so many years of, during Ramadan, of hearing the story of, sir, my head is aching, can you call my mom? Miss, please call my mom, call my dad, I can't. Of hearing these stories, one day I decided, listen, guys, enough is enough. Okay, so what am I going to do? During Ramadan, I will also fast. So the first year of Ramadan that I fasted, I didn't tell anyone, not even my family knew. But this 13-year-old girl came to my office. Sir, call my mom. My head is aching. I asked what's wrong. And says, I'm fasting. And then I looked at her and I told her, I'm also fasting. So she jolted, kind of. And all that, it went completely. She looked at me, says, sir, you're lying. And I said, why would I lie about such a thing like fasting? Then she said something, but you're not a Muslim. And then I asked her, why is it written that I have to be a Muslim to fast? So she got more interested in why I was fasting. So she asked me, why are you fasting? I said, I'm fasting so that I can actually support people like you. I can give you moral support. Then she looked at me and said, okay, then why don't you just become a Muslim? Very interesting conversation. And then I told her, okay, are you my friend? She said, yes. Why are you my friend? She said, sir, you know what? You're a nice person. I said, you see, you said you're a nice person. You didn't say you're a nice Christian or a nice Muslim or a nice Buddhist. You said you're a nice person. It's about the person. It's not about the religion and everything. And that was the end of my story with, sir, can I go home? Very soon, all the Muslims knew that I was fasting, and nobody came to my office to ask for permission to go home. But the good thing is that a few other Christian teachers joined in the fasting to support their students, right? So that is one thing that we learn, that teachers learn from students, and students also learn from teachers. So here we go with the power of storytelling. And the first question I'm going to ask is, why do we tell stories? No, kind of. What do we tell? What kind of stories do we tell? Who is our audience? When do we tell these stories? And where do we tell these stories? And why do we tell stories? And if you look at the evolution of the society from days before, kind of from rural to urban to digital, kind of human beings have got that thirst. There's that thirst of the story. You want to know what is going on. But more than that, you want to connect with other human beings. When Patricia was talking about Singapore and Finland, kind of, you want to know, I mean, are they the same as us? What is it? There was this time when we invited some guests from India to come and talk to the street boys. And the street boys asked, the first thing they asked, do they sniff the same glue like ours? Is the glue more potent, kind of, is it more toxic? Kind of, they're more interested in their glue than in themselves, kind of, right? So it's a human thing. You want to know, what are the others? Are they better than us? What do they have that we don't have? Or what do we have that they don't have? And unfortunately, this is what has led to the next level of storytelling, or what stories do we tell, kind of, right? We become bombarded, left, right, and center. And sometimes when these things come, this is what we start believing, kind of, that our staple food is politics, 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 and politics. And of course, that's what the media sells to us, and that's what is going to say outside there. And then, which is not a problem, because they also have a business. The problem is that we buy it. Kind of, we buy it. They sell it and we buy it, all the time. So much so that if the newspaper does not have that kind of a headline, and it has those headlines, okay? Look at those headlines. Now, we have two outstanding Kenyans, one who was the best or won the global award, right? 100 million Kenyan shillings. And then the famous Eliud Kipchoge, right? Icon, global icon. But just look at the newspaper. Look where they've been placed. Huh? Okay, those are not the headlines. The headline is still politics, kind of. So we are selling you good news, but again, with the good news, we are selling you our toxic news, so that you know that, listen, this is also there. It's like a by the way, kind of very sad. Let's go to sports. One of my favorite, should I say, pastime was watching sports. I've played sports, I've coached and everything. And those two pictures represent some of the maddening moments of sports I've ever seen. The first one, the in blue, Thierry Henry controls the ball with his hand and scores a goal and knocks Ireland out of a World Cup qualifying match. Okay? And here is someone who is revered, loved by people in the world. No apologies made. The second one is a famous hand of God, which was Diego Armando Maradona against England. He scored the first goal using his hand. Ultimately, Argentina went and won the World Cup, and that became the talking point for many days. Again, he did not apologize. He just said that was the hand of God, kind of. Now, these are stories that beg the question, kind of, is winning so important that we have to cheat? And if your icon, your idol, your mentor, your role model cheats, what does that tell you about him? But it's not all gloom in sports. We have some headlines that will never, ever see the day of light, kind of. We have people, who bring that story of humanity back to us and make us realize that, listen, hey, we're human. So here is an athlete who knows the value of 2 seconds or 5 seconds. But no, he is a human being. Let me give the human being a glass of water, and we share it. On the other hand, is someone who was completely not going to finish the race, collapsed. But what does another athlete do? No, let's finish this race. Kind of, this race is we're going to finish it, and we're going to go all the way to the end. So 2 sides of the same coin, kind of. On one hand, you have people who they have to win. And on the other hand, you have people who understand what humanity is. But back to the question, what does the media sell to us? Okay. What stories does social media tell? Kind of. There's something called KOT, Kenyans on Twitter. The other day, a lady, I think on Saturday, she posted about her birthday, 30th birthday. And I think she got about 1,000 responses. I mean, like almost 80-90% of them were just disses and insults and, kind of. And it was so sad that later on, I'm going to pose this question to both Patricia and Vincent, Dr. Gutu. Is the reflection on social media a failure of our education system and our value system? Is it that we as teachers have not imparted, kind of the right value so that people know about etiquette and about respect for each other's space, kind of, and feelings and values and that kind of thing? Right? Again, to the question that I'm going to ask maybe to our audience, the name that you have as your social media name, is it your real name? And if the answer is no, then why are you not using your real name? Is there something you're trying to hide, or is there somebody you're trying to be that you're not? So as we move on, what story are you telling, kind of, you as a person? Where did we lose the plot? Again, as I said, we started with a story. And again, for me, I'm going to end a very, very personal story, a story that happened between my dad and myself. He was diagnosed with cancer and spent like 7 months, should I say, hospitalized. But 3 weeks before he died, he called me. He had refused to stay in hospital, and we were having this battle with him. So in his house in Jericho, he called me. So actually, I went to visit him. And then he called me to his room, so we were just chatting. And then he told me, I don't have much to live. And I was there trying to psych him. No, only God can decide, and this. I told him, no, he told me, God has decided. I don't have much to live. So he told me, you see that coat over there? Bring it. So I brought the coat. He told me, go through it. I went through it, found some money, gave him the money, said, okay, keep it. Bring my phone, okay, open it, go to my M-Pesa. How much is there? There's some money. Okay, transfer it to your M-Pesa. So I did that. Gave me the PIN number. So how much is that? I told him it's this amount, okay. Then he told me, these people, 1, 2, 3, 4 people, they owe me money. Make sure you get that money from them. Okay, so total that, it came to about 70,000 shillings. So he asked me, how much in total? I told him 70,000 shillings. Then he told me, now that is my coffin. I've bought my coffin. Okay. Then he told me, I saw you struggled with the way when your brother died. I saw you struggle when mom died. I know how expensive Luo funerals are. So I've bought my coffin. Please make sure that I am buried in a dignified manner. Of course, 3 weeks later, he died, and we bought a coffin worth that much to give him the befitting send-off. But it's after he died that I realized that we had issues to do with land. We had issues to do with, I don't know, this and that. He did not discuss land at all. He just said, bury me in a dignified manner. So that is my storytelling. And as we move on to back to our audience and we move on to our students, the story we ask ourselves, the question we ask ourselves is, what story are we telling and what lessons are we learning? Thank you very much, Jen.
Thank you, Clifford, for your story. Though deeply personal, it's also quite educative, and it makes me think deeply about some things. And thank you very much for sharing that with us. So really, the question is, what is my story? What are the stories we are telling? What are the stories we're allowing our children to hear? Now, I just want to mention some things that have gone on in the chat group and tie them up before I ask all of you some individual questions. Somebody noted that in the list of role models, there were no female role models. Something I also noticed, something that I did not, as I think deeply about it, I find myself actually quite disturbed. I was going to say slightly disturbed, but I've decided no, I am quite disturbed. So that's something I think I'd like Patricia to address. I'd also like to mention that in the chat group, there is Mr. Indimuli Kahi, Ms. Mutheu Kasanga, Ms. Tima Ali, all answering questions in tandem with our panelists. And I wanted to thank them for their participation and for their help. And also want to highlight that when Patricia asked what are Kenyans known for, some answers did come. Kenyans are known for their humor and generosity, which is wonderful. But somebody also said Kenyans are known for ujanja and theft. Part of the story we've told, maybe, or it is the truth. Who knows? So I want to ask this of Vincent. Whose work is it to inculcate values? Whose work is it? Is it our work as a society? Is it the parent? And when these values are not inculcated, whose fault is it? And finally, is there a way, is there redemption for people who feel they've started late in the value inculcation journey? Is there redemption for them? And how do they recover their children? How do they recover themselves?
Thank you, Jane. This might sound controversial, but ultimately, the responsibility for learning values is yours as an individual. Of course, it takes a village, and you can't teach yourself certain things, especially at the beginning. When you're a little kid, all you see is what your parents show you, what they actually display every day. We've talked a lot on the chat about role modeling and examples. So at the beginning, that's how it is. And one of you very early on in the chat was talking about how later on in life, you're the one who chooses the values that you want to espouse. And that is true. That's why I'm saying ultimately, on Judgment Day, when each of us is judged individually, you're going to be asked which values did you espouse consciously and live by. But on the journey to acquiring those values, there's so many powerful influences. And the most powerful really is our parents. And then after that, it's teachers, I think. It's basically the people you come in contact with all the time. When I was growing up, we were much more of a communal society in Africa, where it really was the responsibility of anyone older to take care of anyone younger. It didn't even matter whether you're relatives or not. I could be walking through the streets in Huruma, where I grew up, or Eastleigh, I see some kids fighting and I'm a kid myself. But as long as they're younger than me, I'll step in and say, break it up. Why are you guys fighting? Okay, then I'll resolve the issue and I'll get them to shake hands, and then they go back to playing and I walk away. And if I didn't do it, it would be dereliction of duty as an older brother. It did not matter. It wasn't those days when you suspect anyone. Why are you talking to my kids? It was your responsibility. How did you allow them to continue when you're an adult or you're an older person and you didn't help? So that is something that all of us have a duty to do. And I hope we never fully lose it in Kenya, where you have the freedom to step in and tell somebody, hey, guys, knock it off. Don't do that, where we give each other that license. But again, there's an element of trust here. What values will that person be imparting? In terms of, does it get too late? Obviously, the older you become and you haven't set yourself in good values, the harder it is to change it. You're set in your ways and you've bought into a certain worldview, and it gets harder and harder to change. Is it impossible? No. Because to say anything is impossible, especially when it comes to changing your character, would be like saying there's no such thing as grace. There's no such thing as freedom. Sometimes it's really hard. If it gets to alcoholism and drugs, it's now even beyond willpower. It's now some physiological dependency, and it gets harder and harder. And even then, it's possible to overcome it. But like I said, it gets harder and harder. But there is such a thing as redemption. It's one of my favorite words. Just that knowledge that as long as there's any breath left in you, there is hope. Even if it's just 5 minutes left in your life, you've wasted your whole life, you can make such a good, perfect act of contrition that you actually are allowed to go to heaven because you've made it up in the last few minutes. If you think I'm joking, look at, I've told you this story, Patricia, at Rusinga, the good thief, the one who defended Jesus at the cross. I mean, he was a murderer, a thief. He was being crucified with Jesus. It looked like the end of the story, like there's no redemption here. And yet, in the last few hours of his life, he did the noblest thing that even the apostles hadn't done, to defend Jesus. And he was told, this day you will be with me in paradise. And he ended up in paradise. So as long as there's any breath left in you, there's hope. So keep struggling, never give up on yourself. Whatever bad things you did in the past, just lean on grace, ask for help, believe that if you start again, there's still hope and you can get somewhere.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Clifford, how do we change the stories our children listen to? What can we do to influence the stories that our children listen to?
Okay, thank you very much. I think there has to be that what Vincent is talking about. There has to be a concerted effort, because I think that's what has been lacking. There's not that concerted effort for us to celebrate our very own. And if people say that there are few female role models, then let's look for them, because they're there. They're there, community workers. Let's look for them and let's tell their stories. We are not telling our stories. When we ask that question of what story are we telling, we're not telling enough of those stories. And then also we need to get them published so that apart from these, should I say, set books in Form 3 and Form 4, we need storybooks from Standard 1 all the way to Form 4 that are telling these stories. Of course, there have been biography series by certain publishers, but again, it has leaned very heavily towards politicians. What about just ordinary teachers? I mean, I would like to see Thabiti's story before he becomes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, when he's retiring, he's old. That's when he's telling his story. No, his stories should be told now when it is fresh and shared with us. So let us tell our stories. Let those be more impactful than it currently is.
Wonderful. And Patricia, what is the picture of success? What is this nexus? What is the picture for success?
Yes, a very good question. I just put there on the chart that I believe somewhere along the line there was miseducation of what success is. And the miseducation was based on the fact that if I get a big house, a big car, good grades, that's success. I think the nexus of success is, one, that you are living the life between you and God, because it's always between you and God, and you will know. You're living the life that you know you were born to live. You see, that way, your passion then becomes your how do I put it, your motivator. It's the one that gives you the energy. If I'm driven enough by passion, think about the teachers. That guy who got a lot of money, the teacher who's in the newspaper, is somewhere in the middle pages, decided, I don't need all this money. What is it for? Let me share it with community. Now that's the nexus of success. In reality, what is the most important thing in life? I cannot have all those many millions and I'm living amidst people who even daily water is a struggle. Can I use my millions to pull in that pipe and ensure guys in the neighborhood are also getting some water? Then I will be happy. That's the nexus of success.
Wonderful.
And it has nothing to do with you as an individual. It has everything to do with you with other people. Asante.
I think those are such powerful remarks that I want to stop it there. And I want to ascribe values to this. Mr. Vincent is the man of purpose. Find your purpose. Live in your purpose. Mr. Clifford, what we got from you is listen to the stories around you. Choose the story you want to tell and the one you want told about you. Tell it and show it is impactful. Patricia, live for others. Make a difference. Not look at your circumstances. Do what you can to help your fellow man. Success is only success in the way we know it if it is communal. It is not individual. If it is a reflection of the society we live in, then it is success. And I think that's a wonderful place to live it. We are well over time, but I think I learned a lot. And I thank you so much for taking the time and coming and doing this with us. For our audience, our next webinar will be on the 13th of August, 2020, same time, 3 p.m. And we will still be going on with this topic, character and values, because I think we need time to dissect and to do this properly. As a special treat, we will be having a marathon record holder and Olympic champion, Eliud Kipchoge, as one of the key mentors and role models mentioned by our children. I'd like to say that I know him in person. Make sure you catch that. And it's in the recording. I'm not playing. Anyway, that he will be doing the webinar, as will youngsters, the youth, the people we are hoping to catch, the people we hope will fix the mistakes that we have made. They will be talking to, and we are hoping that parents and students will be mixed, and we are hoping to have all of them present, and we are hoping to have a conversation to begin to tell our stories so we can begin to change the narrative about us and change the values currently holding water over us, or at least remember who we are. So that is what will be happening on the 13th. And we'd also really like to thank our sponsors who have been fantastic and have made this possible. So we have Alison Production, Miss Alison Gibuine, we are grateful. We have PMS Africa Group, led by the very fantastic Joanne. We also have Tifa Research. We also the Pole, and it's scientific, and we are grateful that we have that resource. And we are very happy and grateful for the My Happy Place team and for all they've done for us and all the follow-up they do to ensure that this webinars continue to happen. We will see you again on the 13th of August 2020. And if you leave, and if you remember nothing from this webinar, remember you are the captain of your ship. There is always redemption, be that thief on the cross. Begin to write that story and tell it. And remember that there is no success that is any type of success if your neighbor does not reflect it. Please have a good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.